Welcome to the Dr. Tom Show today. I am really excited to have someone that I really do admire and respect in our profession. I've had the pleasure and good fortune to be taught by him, to speak alongside him, and to see him in his element, delivering what he really does enjoy and love so much. He is the creator of the Minardi education, creating certainty in the power of chiropractic and teaching Thompson technique. And in his 20 years, he's really been enthused in understanding the neurology of the vertebral subluxation complex, and more importantly, how to apply it. He's got a unique blend of passion, intensity, which I hope is going to come across today, and what I love the most, excellence for what he does. He's busy teaching and most of the time traveling, but we're blessed and fortunate to have him online today. But alongside that, he's also in full-time practice. He was awarded Chiropractic of the Year in 2011 and 2018. I am so excited. Dr. John Minardi, thank you ever so much for joining us today on the show.
Thanks for having me, brother. I'm happy to be here.
Awesome. So you are one of the most busy people I know. I mean, just before the show, we were talking about it, and a couple of years ago in Scotland, we were discussing how busy our schedules were, and I thought I was, but nothing in comparison to you. And you're in full-time practice. So my question is, why do you do it? Why do you teach? Why do you choose to use all your time?
You know what? How long do we have, brother? Because this is a long story. But I mean, this actually started back when I was still in chiropractic college, because I was a very vivid learner. Like I loved chiropractic so much going into chiropractic college that I wanted to absorb as much information as I could. So I personally went to every technique seminar that came in my area. Then that kind of developed into going into philosophy seminars, and then some science stuff. And I love chiropractic. I wanted to be a sponge with as much as I possibly could. So I went to more seminars in my first year of chiropractic college than probably the school combined, because like I literally was gone every weekend just attending seminars to learn. And a fourth year, who was in Canada, you only have 4 years in chiropractic college. And the fourth year came up to me, who was running the Thompson Club at the time, and said, "Hey, we really want you to take over the club." And the club was small, but only fourth years took over the club, right? So I was like, "Dude, I'm in first year. I don't know anything." And he says, "No, that's not true. You probably know this stuff way better than everybody else because you've been to so many seminars and whatnot." So I said, "Yeah, what the hell? Let's do it." So going into second year, I took over the Thompson Club, and that was my start, because I started to expand the club because people would come in. There was a small club at the time; it only had 12 people when I took over, but people were walking into the club with tremendous skepticism, because I graduated from CMCC, and they basically said every technique was garbage, only diversified was the way, all that kind of stuff. And people would come to the club and they like, "How come the leg lengths balance out with head rotation? Tell me that." And I'd be like, "Well, shit, I don't really know, but come back next week and I'll have an answer for you." And I would spend the whole week studying neurology, biomechanics, all this stuff to come up with an answer as to why that happened. And then more people would ask more questions. And I kept saying the same thing. "I don't know the answer to that, but come back, come back." And slowly that club grew from 12 people. When I graduated in fourth year, I had over 200 people at that club. We were by far the biggest. We only had 400 people in the entire school. Wow. And more than half of them were at my club every week. So that was the start. And an older chiropractor saw me teaching once while teaching to students, and he walked up to me and he said, "Hey, I'm actually teaching at a seminar. I would love for you to be my assistant. I could use some help." I said, "Sure." So I sat at the back of the room. He was at the front of the room, and people started asking him questions. And this older guy he had the same answers as every older generation chiropractor did. Nate will take care of that, or that was just the way we were taught. Oh, I knew Clay Thompson personally, all this kind of stuff. But the crowd was, "Yeah, that's fine. That's great." But they're like, "But why does that happen?" And they were drilling this dude. So at one point, I raised my hand from the back, and he kind of saw me, and he was like, "John, do you have something to say?" And I said, "Actually, I have an answer to that question." So the whole room turns around and looks at me, and I answer the guy's question, and they're like, "Oh, that makes sense." So another question came up a couple minutes later, and he didn't have another answer. So he looked at me and said, "John, do you happen to have the answer for this?" And I said, "Actually, I do." And so the rest of the seminar, when people raised their hand, they would turn around and say, "Do you have an answer for this? Do you have an answer for that?" And so that's where it started. And that's what really started to prompt me that neurology and biomechanics was the biggest tools that I could use to show people the rationale to back up our actual philosophy of chiropractic. See, you have to have a strong philosophy of chiropractic, but when people challenge you, that's when you need science to back up your philosophy, right? And that was the start, brother. And I was only teaching, maybe when I graduated, I was teaching perhaps once every couple of months, and I was teaching technique, and I was developing, I was advancing Thompson. That's why I call it the Thompson Minardi systems now, because I put so much to I added so much to the original technique. But then people were coming up to me saying, hey, dude, can you speak at our neurology seminar? Because I was using so much neurology explaining technique. And I said, dude, I'm not a neurologist. Like, I'll look like an idiot compared to like actual neurologists. And they're like, no, but you explain stuff so people can understand it. So like, we'll just give you an hour. And I said, okay, what's the worst that can happen? I get booed off the stage. You know what I mean? The worst things can happen, right? So I go to this seminar. I'm one of, I think it was 5 or 6 speakers. And I only had an hour, and everybody else, you know, like I was just like kind of mid-card kind of thing, right? And at the end of the weekend, the promoters came up to me and said, hey, can we talk to you, please? They looked at their evaluations, and the number one evaluation on there that came up again and again was, we need more John Minardi, because I understood what he was actually saying. And that was really started my deep dive into teaching neurology. And I always say to people, like, I'm not a neurologist. I've just read a lot of neurology and taught myself, and was able to just kind of chunk it down so that everybody can understand it. And then that kind of took off. So for the past, like, I've been teaching for 20 years now. I'd say the past 10 years, I went from teaching once a month to twice a month to 3 times a month. And then the past 10 years, it's been 3 or 4 times a month. There's weekends I'm speaking at multiple events, but I loved it. Like I mean, I don't complain about it in any capacity. Like I really, it was a dream of mine to do stuff like that. So to bring it to fruition was, was a great passion of mine to see come to be. But the bigger thing was having people come up to me after and saying, I finally understand. I had people from very pain-based schools, like young docs, coming up to me saying, dude, that just changed my whole thinking process of what chiropractic is. I graduated from, ABC school, and they told us the subluxation doesn't exist. And you made more sense to me in an hour than people have for 4 years of, and so hearing that just drove me, right? I was like, yes, because that's how I felt in school. We learned a lot of science, but I couldn't tell you how any of it related to chiropractic, right? So it made me say to myself, I'm on the right path. You know what I mean? And once I was on that path, brother, I just went full force. And, I am still in full-time practice, though. Most people don't actually know that. But yeah, I still adjust people every single day. And then I'd hop on a plane on Friday. I'd teach all weekend, come back Sunday night, and then I'd start Monday all over again. And for 10 years, this is true, man. I can't even make this up. For 10 years in a row, I did not take one day off. I had not a single day off in 10 years. Like, I literally just was going bang, bang, bang. Even during holidays, Christmas break and New Year's, all that stuff, I was creating courses. Like, I would make posts on Facebook saying, hope everybody's enjoying their eggnog. I'm making another course on New Year's Eve. And people are like, oh, you're a madman. But to me, brother, that's chasing greatness. You know what I mean? Like, you got to chase it, right? It's not going to just show up at your door. You have to chase it. You have to work. You have to push. And so that's why I do it. And I think it's great. You know what I mean? So that's why I do it.
I told everybody you're going to come out with some intensity, dude, and you just came flying out the blocks. Like, I'm going some rounds with you today. But it's
brother.
It's like, there's 2 things you can take from that. You can take the chiropractic side of it, but you can also take the just the life lessons. And like, I'm writing a couple of notes there as you spoke. Like, first of all, if you want to get anywhere in life, just start absorbing stuff from people. Like, start learning. Start small. You only started with 12 people, dude.
That's right.
And it all came from saying yes to an opportunity that came up. And like, I'm sure you'll never quite know how many lives you've actually changed through your influence. But your soul is rich, my friend, and it's really made a difference in the short period of time. And people, if they're listening on the podcast, listening on the audio, just go and Google an image of John Minardi, because he's not like this sick person who's on the road every day. He's a fit, athletic, handsome human being. So you can have it all. John Minardi says it.
I appreciate it, brother. You know what though? But look at yourself, brother. You're a very fit man. Like I don't like excuses.
No.
I just don't. You know what I mean? Like to me, you either get it done or you don't, but don't bullshit me either way. You know what I mean? Like, just get it done. Like, I'm on the road before all this nonsense happened. I'm on the road every weekend. I'm in full-time practice. I'm in a relationship. Like, I hear all your excuses, dude. I have all of them and I still do it. And guys like you still do it. So how do we do it? Because we don't waste a lot of time. You know what I mean? And
so true. And that's what I like about what you teach as well, is because you're making it like in your bio, we talked about, you take a concept that can be very difficult. I mean, I remember flying to San Francisco to sit in a meeting with chiropractors from around the world to discuss the vertebral subluxation complex. And we were getting in that room, and Donnie Epstein walks in, drops a file on everybody's table and goes, "That's all the research. It's already been done. We know it." Like it's just taking this concept and making it practically applicable.
Right.
So if someone's listening and they're thinking, what is this vertebral subluxation complex? What is this thing that, because we have people who are chiropractors, non-chiropractors on the show.
Sure.
What is a vertebral subluxation complex?
I mean, the easiest way I can say it is this: like, the biggest thing that chiropractic does, and the biggest thing that a vertebral subluxation is when the spine is misaligned, it sends tremendous bad information to the brain. For my chiropractors on here, we're talking about aberrant proprioceptive and nociceptive information. For my non-chiropractors, I like to say bad information, because anytime the spine is not moving properly, it sends bad signals to the brain. And I really want people to understand this, because so many times people are like, "Oh yeah, chiropractors, you fix my back, things aren't working right, so you put things back in place, kind of like I'm hammering a nail in." But that's not it at all. I need you to understand that every time your vertebrae are not moving properly, it's sending bad information to the brain. And that bad information to the brain ends up sending a tremendous amount of stress hormones into the body. That is what is destroying overall health, is the long-term stress hormone release. So can a chiropractor help with your back pain and headaches and stuff? Yes, but that's actually the smallest piece of the puzzle of what we're actually doing. By adjusting the spine, we replace that bad information with good information now. Now the brain gets good information and doesn't release stress hormones anymore. Now it releases good hormones like serotonin and dopamine and oxytocin and all the good, happy hormones of your brain, so that your body can heal. That's why you hear such crazy global health benefits with chiropractic. Ask any chiropractic patient who's been a long-term chiropractic patient. They'll all say to you, "Oh, I haven't felt pain in years, but I feel like $1 million every time I leave a chiropractic office." Well, if they haven't been paying for years, what are they talking about? Why are they talking about feeling like $1 million? They can't put their thumb on it because they don't know the neurology behind it, but they're talking about that hormone release, that good hormone release that chiropractors do every time. Because the big take-home point is chiropractic affects your brain. When you're subluxated, when you have that vertebrae that's not moving properly, that affects your brain in a negative way. When we adjust you, it affects the brain in a positive way, so it releases all kinds of positive hormones in the body and allows you to heal. That's the simplest way I can put what our profession does.
So would you go as far to say, if you have a subluxation, you are heading towards sickness?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
No question. No different than if you're eating bad foods, you're heading towards sickness. No different than if you have a lack of motion in your life and you're just sedentary, you're leading to sickness. No different than if you're surrounding yourself with negative people all the time and only hearing pessimism your entire life, you're leading to sickness. All of those send bad information to the brain. And when the brain is just encompassed with bad information, stress hormones are just constantly going to be released, and that will affect your health to disease and illness. It's like the cascade to disease and illness. So yes, 100%.
So how does someone know if they're subluxated?
How does somebody know if they're subluxated? The easiest answer is to get checked by a chiropractor. But at home, if you're like, oh, I think I feel fine, quite frankly, ask yourself a few questions and forget symptoms for a second. Ask yourself easy questions. Are you eating properly? Because a lot of people sit back and say, oh, I think I eat pretty healthy. Okay, really write down what you've eaten in a day and see how healthy you really eat. Because a lot of times people think they're eating healthy. When they start writing it down, they're like, yeah, you know what? There's a lot of stuff here that I should be cutting out. Another thing, how much movement are you having? Are you stuck in front of a computer all day? Do you exercise on a regular basis? And what I mean by that is a minimum of 3 times a week for an hour each one of those times. Are you moving at least that much every week? Because if you're not, you're already subjecting your body to lack of motion. And lack of motion automatically leads to subluxations, regardless if you're in symptoms or not. That's the big thing I'd like my non-chiropractors who are listening to this. You need to understand that symptoms, you being in pain, you feeling discomfort, you having a headache, whatever, those are the last things that show up of a problem. You can have a problem for a long time and not feel any symptoms. And people sit back and say, well, how's that possible, John? Because your body's always accommodating, it's adapting. So when you first starting having terrible posture, you're not going to have symptoms from that. When you're first in front of a computer, you're not going to have symptoms from that. But they aggravate bad neurology. They aggravate bad biomechanics. And after time in accumulation, when it hits a point, then it says, oh man, you know what? I can't deal with this anymore. I can't adapt anymore. So I'm going to give you symptoms to let you know now there's a very serious problem here. So your body's been fighting this for months and months until you get to that symptom point. So that's why I want everybody to know here, you don't have to have symptoms to have a problem. Right? And remember what the number one killer in all the world is? It's heart disease. And the number one symptom of that, the first symptom is death. That's the first symptom. You die. Right? So the number one killer in the whole world has no symptoms. So I need you guys to understand the subluxation is very similar to that. It grows and accumulates until symptoms appear. So I would recommend every single person be checked by a chiropractor to see if they're subluxated. No different than I would recommend every single person start an exercise regime. Every single person eat well. Every single person start surrounding yourself with good quality people who give you positivity in your life, because those are the pillars to health. So that's what I would recommend for everyone. And chiropractic is one of those pillars.
Because, you know, for the vast majority, the overwhelming majority, health is not a lottery, is it?
No,
it's not. Like
no.
It's something that we can predict, and we can definitely have a positive, even if there's some genetic susceptibility there, we can still choose to move our body towards expressing that or not. Is that right?
100%. And look at Bruce Lipton's work. And for those of you guys who don't know who Bruce Lipton is, he wrote a book called Biology of Belief, but he was a Stanford University microbiologist, okay? He's not a chiropractor, but he often speaks at chiropractic events because he firmly believes in the philosophy of chiropractic. Why? Because of his own research. He openly has stated that 95% of illness is due to environmental factors, meaning you have complete control of all of it. 95%. He said only 5% of all disease is coming from genetic factors. Like if something runs in your family genetically, that's only happening 5% of the time. Most of the time, we blame genetics for poor decisions we have learned through our families. So if your family eats garbage food, typically you pick up those traits. If your family never exercises, typically you pick up those traits. So you think it's a genetic thing, but actually it's environmental, it's poor choices, right? But I always say to people, even if you're one of those 5%, let's pretend you actually did have a real genetic problem. Fight genetics through environment. You can still eat as healthy as possible and fight your genetics. You can still exercise and fight your genetics. You can still surround yourself with good people and fight your genetics. Even if you have a genetic predisposition to something, you can still fight against that by surrounding yourself with things that make you healthy. So you should still be getting checked. Why? By a chiropractor. Why? Because if we found subluxations inside you and adjusted you, we're going to produce positive stuff to your brain. And when your brain releases releases those positive hormones, genetics or not, you're going to get better. No other way around that.
There's a really interesting study done. I can't remember when or where it was, but it was on Down syndrome people, and quite typically Down syndrome people have very plain looking faces.
Sure.
And what they saw was they took the group and they took these Down syndrome people and put them in a really active, vibrant, healthy lifestyle. And they noticed that their facial features started to change, and they started to acquire more sharpness, for a better word, of their facial features. It's actually changing the genetic expression of someone with a true genetic issue.
Sure. And I'll tell you this, in one of my courses, I talk about a study that they did. They called it the, I think it was the Bible study or something like that. But what they did was they took nuns and priests over their entire lifespan. And the reason that they took nuns and priests is because they could control the environment that they were in. So they knew what type of foods they were having, the access to activity, all this kind of stuff. So they could control and see what environmental factors affected anything. And what they were looking for was dementia. So they thought to themselves, I'm going to follow these people their entire life, and the individuals who start to look like they're losing their mind a bit, when we do an autopsies on these people, we are going to expect that they're going to have a lot of brain degeneration at that time because, you know, they're not as sharp, right? But the individuals who stay sharp their entire life, we're thinking that when we do autopsies on these people's brain, their brain is going to be nice and healthy, not much degeneration, all this kind of stuff, okay? So they do this study. You know what they found? Every single person they did an autopsy on, everyone had an equal amount of degeneration. So the people who are sharp as a tack had lots of degeneration. The people who looked like they were losing their mind had lots of degeneration. So they're like, well, what the hell's going on here? Everybody's got the exact same amount of degeneration, but some are sharp as a tack, and some, you know, you could tell that they had major degeneration. How come? Then they looked at their history, and they saw what these individuals were doing on a day-to-day basis. And the individuals who looked sharp as a tack still, they still exercised. They still had social bonds with other people. They were very social. They did games like chess and Monopoly and all this kind of stuff. They did activities. And what they found was the more activities you did, it activated the brain. It sent positive responses to the brain. So the healthy area of their brain was stronger. It was like having a workout for the healthy area of the brain, and it took over the actions of the degenerated area of the brain. The individuals who look like they were degenerated, these individuals, when they looked at them, they didn't do those activities. They were stressed all the time. They weren't active in any capacity. They didn't do any type of games. They were highly stressed. So when you're highly stressed, releasing tons of stress hormones, it degenerates the brain quicker and quicker and quicker. Why do I say this? Because a lot of people sit back and say, oh man, you know what? But dementia runs in my family. My mom had it. Her mom had it before that. I'm doomed. No, you're not. No, you're not. Every single one of us is going to have degeneration in our brain. Every single one. What are you doing to strengthen the area of your brain that isn't going to have degeneration? Because that is going to overtake that degenerative area. And I argue that chiropractic is one of those things that activates the brain, just like that workout, just like exercise, but that's not my opinion. The reason I know that is because if you look at certain research that's been published already, things like Heidi Havoc's work, things like O'Gara's work, these guys all show that every time we adjust the spine, we activate the brain. You make neurons in the brain fire every time you adjust the spine. So even if dementia ran in your family, is that going to prevent it? No, but it'll make the area of the brain that is still healthy stronger so you can still function day to day. That's why I say, fight genetics the best that I can. If heart disease ran in your family, okay, you can fight that by eating as healthy as possible. You can fight that by exercising every day. Trust me, if you say to yourself, oh, heart disease runs in my family, might as well continue to eat junk food every day, might as well just sit on my tail every day. Well, guess what? That's a recipe for death, right?
Yep.
But if you fought it every day, it's still in your control.
It's so true. And I love the fact you are leaning heavily on chiropractic, because it is something that is missed. Like, I have a simple saying I tell people: if the body moves, the brain grooves. It's as simple as that. And like, even if the body's moving, is that movement message getting to the brain, or is it getting, you know, sidestepped or stopped by malmovement in the spine? Have you read any of Dr. Amon's work? He talks about brain
Yes.
health, really good stuff on that.
Yes.
Where they, like they are scanning brains. They think there's nothing wrong here, but this person's having these symptoms. And I think a lot of it comes down to perfusion, but also neurological stimulus.
Absolutely. And think about that, right? Like if you, we all heard the term, if you don't use it, you lose it, right? And that's easy to see with muscle mass. Like if you were in great shape and all of a sudden you stop working out, you see the muscle atrophy because the body is lazy. It's like, well, if I don't have to build muscle, that requires a lot of work. I won't do it if you're not going to, keep lifting weights or whatever. Well, the brain is the exact same way. If you're not getting that proper stimulation to the brain constantly, well, the brain's like any other part of your body. It's like, well, then why bother staying big and healthy? I can shrink a little bit because that'll require less energy. The body and the brain overall are lazy, but if you push it, it will grow as much as you give it influence.
And you're the example of that. If you think about, how busy you've been, you're constantly on the road, you're moving, you're athletic, and your body is adapting, your body's actually getting better for it, not getting broken down because of it, which is quite a misnomer, I think.
Well, yeah.
Go on.
No, I was just going to say a lot of people, when I try, like for those of you guys who don't know me on here, when I was teaching, it is not an ounce of exaggeration to say I was on the road between 40 and 45 weekends per year. That's on the road all over the world. I'm talking Brazil, Chile, all over the UK, all over Europe, all over Canada, United States, everywhere. And the reason I put that in is because there's time changes in there. Those are 18-hour flights, sometimes 20-hour flights, 8-hour flights. I'm on the flight all the time. So people would say to me, well, how are you still able to work out? How are you still able to eat healthy? There's always a way. There's always a way. When I would land somewhere, the very first thing that I would ask the individual that brought me in is, where's a gym? That's the very first thing that I would ask. Then we always ate good quality food. When I'm in airports, I don't reach for chocolate and garbage. I always look around and see where can I eat and get a decent meal. Right? So no matter how busy you are, you can still do it. It's just about making choices that are hard to make sometimes. It's easier to grab a burger. That's just easy. But it takes a little bit more effort to say, yeah, I don't really want that. Where can I get some good quality chicken? Where can I get a good steak? Like, where can I get a good salad? Where can I get that kind of food? You just got to put that effort in.
So true. So true. Like we talk about exercise and people know that exercise, for me, it should be a daily thing. You're saying at least an hour, 3 times a week. Eating nutrition wise, that should be just a daily, every meal thing. How often should people get checked for vertebral subluxation? Does that depend on the person, their lifestyle, or would you advise it a certain frequency? What's best for people?
This is what I say to people. You should be getting adjusted. You should be getting adjusted at least once every 3 weeks. Now, what's that based on? That's based on research from Kramer in 2002. What this particular researcher did is he wanted to know how long it would take for the joints of the spine to start to degenerate if I had a lack of movement. So if I just didn't move properly, how long would it take for actual degeneration to happen? And for those of you guys who don't know, degeneration is what leads to arthritis and all that kind of stuff. How long does it take? You know what he found? 4 weeks. 4 weeks. All it takes is you not to move properly for 4 weeks, and inside the joints of your spine, actual scar tissue, degeneration starts to occur. It starts to wear down, okay? Then he did a follow-up study in 2010 and said, what would happen if I don't do anything to this? Within 2 to 3 months, depending on the individual, full-blown scar tissue would develop inside the joint. So within 4 weeks, it starts to degenerate. Within 2 to 3 months, full-blown scar tissue happens. So think about scar tissue. It's like kind of like cement inside your joint. So if that's occurring, are you able to move properly anymore? No. That's why if you ever are, say, moving your neck around and you're like hearing crunch, 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 grind, grind, if you're hearing stuff like that, that's scar tissue already developing inside your joints. That doesn't necessarily equal pain. But if you start to hear this stuff, that's already telling you that degeneration is occurring, scar tissue is occurring. This is leading to a very, very big problem. So based on Kramer's work, I say everyone, literally everyone, should be checked and adjusted at least once every 3 weeks so you don't even hit that 4-week mark. That's why in my own clinic, our wellness care is once every 3 weeks. But truthfully, I think the best overall is everybody should be adjusted at least once a week. If you're putting your body through physical stress by sitting in front of a computer all day, or you got a demanding job that you're lifting things, or you're just a guy like myself and you, Tom, that pushing hard in the gym, you need to be checked at least once a week to make sure you're running properly. There's no other way around it. The same thing also occurs if you're eating a lot of garbage food, if you're having a lot of stress in your life. All of these things release stress hormones. You need to balance that out. And one of the things research has shown is that chiropractic adjustments decrease stress markers. So if you have a high stress life for whatever reason, whether it be physical, chemical, emotional, you need something to balance out those stress markers in the blood. And chiropractic has been shown to do that. Now, exercise has been shown to do that too. Eating healthy has been shown to do that too. But chiropractic is the only thing that can find a problem in the spine and correct it for you so that you can move properly again.
Amazing. And that's amazing for the chiropractors listening, like to have that level of certainty in terms of frequency. Because oftentimes when someone's been in care and they're lacking a bit of certainty, they let that patient dictate how often they want to come in. And they're coming on based on what we were talking about earlier, feeling. And if feeling is end stage, and you're saying it's 4 weeks, just 4 weeks to get change in that spine, it's extraordinary.
Right.
And it also, I assume, shows that why someone comes to care and they've never been under care before, it's going to take a little bit to get that spine moving right again. Is that true to say?
Oh, exactly correct. A lot of people will come into the office and they'll say something like this. They'll say, oh, all that happened is I went to tie my shoe and I threw my back up, but I was perfect before then. But all I did was time. That is physiologically impossible. And I need everyone to really understand that, whether you be your chiropractor that's listening or non-chiropractor, it is physiologically impossible for you to be in perfect health, bend over to tie your shoe and throw your back out. That's actually not possible to do. But we hear it every day in our offices. And maybe some of your listeners are like, yeah, but that happened to me. Here's what you need to know. Like I just said, it only takes 4 weeks for degeneration to start. It takes 2 to 3 months for scar tissue to build. What I need you to add to that mix is inflammation starts to build like crazy too. And inflammation brings chemicals with it that start to irritate the area. So the only way that you bending over to tie your shoelace through your back out is if your body was compensating for months and months and months from an original injury that you had no idea even happened. And then that tying the shoelace was the straw that broke the camel's back. It pushed you over the edge. So the reason I bring up this type of example is because I need you to know your problem didn't start this morning when you tied your shoe and felt the pop in your back. Your problem has actually been starting months and months ago, and your body tried to compensate as long as it could. And then something simple like tying your shoe threw you over the edge. So I need you to know this. Chiropractors are not fixing what happened today. We are fixing the accumulation of what's going on. So if it took months and months for you to get to this point, guess what? It's going to take me time to bring this back to a position where your body can really adapt and heal again. Everything takes time, and time has a process. There was a process for you to get to how bad you are. And now, unfortunately, there's going to be a process to get you back to a neutral position, if I can say that.
Just like someone, if they'd lost their way in their health in terms of aesthetically and physically and exercise wise, it's taking time to get there. It's going to take time to get away from that.
Absolutely.
So there's a lot of chiropractors out there with bad backs.
Yeah.
You know, what's your sort of thought on that? And could chiropractors be doing more to be an example for their communities and health in general? Where do you think the buck stops with that?
Well, absolutely. Like, listen, if I walked into a dentist office and he had a mouth filled with rotting teeth, would you put a lot of faith into what he's about to tell you for your teeth? Probably not, right? But chiropractors do this all the time. They live unhealthy lifestyles. They themselves are suffering with some type of spinal problem, or they're not taking care of themselves and they're defined as obese. They smoke. There's all kinds of stuff that you see in the chiropractic profession. And what do you think? Example wise, you're telling your patients to take care of their health. You're telling your patients to get adjusted on a regular basis, but yet you don't yourself. That's very incongruent, right? I want people to walk into my clinic and say, wow, that guy's in great shape. I want to be like him. Well, what does he do? Right? Because you're leading by example right off the top. You know, it's funny that you bring this up, because a couple of weeks ago, I saw a post on Facebook, or maybe Instagram, one of the social media platforms, and a very fit chiropractic female had a picture of herself, and you could tell she takes care of herself. She was probably in her mid 30s, maybe early 40s. And she just said something like this. She said, you know, as chiropractors, I really think we need to lead by example, exercise on a regular basis, get yourself adjusted. I thought the post was brilliant, really did. She got so much hate from other chiropractors saying, oh, you know what? I'm a chunky chiropractor and I think I look just as good and blah, blah, blah. It had nothing to do with any of that. She was just saying, live a healthy lifestyle so you can give a good example to your patients. And everybody freaked out on it. Do you want to know why? Because no one's living that healthy lifestyle. That is why everybody freaked out on this girl, because they looked at the mirror and thought, oh my God, I'm offended by what she said because I am not in shape and I'm a chiropractor. So instead of listening to her words and saying, you know what, she's right, I got to get back on the right track, they took it out on her like she was the problem, right? Here's the thing. If you're a chiropractor on here listening to this and you think to yourself, you know what, yeah, I haven't worked out in a long time, start now. Start now. If you think if you're listening to this saying, you know what, yeah, I have been eating pretty crappy lately since this whole lockdown happened. I haven't been able to get out the way I could. I haven't been able to work out. Start now. Just start now. You don't have to hate yourself. That doesn't do anything. You just have to say to yourself, there's an issue here. I have to do something about it. So start today. Start working out today. Start getting adjusted today. Start eating better today. Like, just start. You don't have to, it doesn't have to all be done by the end of the week. Just start. And then with accumulation, you'll get into good shape later on. We have to lead good examples, man. How are we telling people about health if we are unhealthy? That's the most incongruent thing we can do, right?
It's so true. And it circles right back to what we were saying at the start of the show. Like, if you're listening to John speaking now and you're thinking, wow, this guy has just achieved everything. He's got so much knowledge. I wish I had that. I wish I could teach like him. I wish I could travel like him. It all started by saying yes, listening to what someone's saying, and starting small. And it's the same with our health. It's the same with our practice, same with our understanding of chiropractic. I think in health in general, we need more honesty. I think there's been a lot of skating around the subject and trying to appease and please, but health isn't a lottery. There is, and even when you might have a bad ticket, like you say, you can fight genetics. There is so much more potential. And I suppose, sort of as we're wrapping up, I think to myself, if every chiropractor had the level of certainty that you'd like them to have, that you could teach them, what do you think that would do for the profession?
Well, truthfully, I think it would skyrocket the profession, because right now, I think the biggest problem we have is doubt. We doubt what we do. And truthfully, I think that comes right from most of the educational institutions that produce chiropractors. If you have schools that are telling students the subluxation doesn't exist, all you do is, basically you're a physiotherapist, just stretch people out and that would be the same as the adjustment. If you have schools teaching this, and there are many schools that teach that, does it surprise me that so many students are confused, that so many people start practice not knowing what the hell they're doing, that so many people are doubtful in the power of chiropractic? It doesn't surprise me at all. So I really have some ill feelings towards a lot of the educational institutions out there that are starting our students that way. But if we could come in and kind of inject people with confidence and say, this is what we do, this is the research behind it, and just put this all in chiropractors' brains, then we wouldn't have all this doubt anymore. Marcus Carrassus, a famous Roman, always said the only thing we have to fear is doubt. That's the only thing to truly fear is doubt itself. That's the most powerful thing that will ruin us, right? If we doubt what we do. And that comes from a lack of certainty. It comes from a lack of knowledge. It comes from not knowing the power of what you do. Like I mentioned earlier, I'm not a neurologist. I'm self-taught in this stuff. I have the same education as every other chiropractor in the whole world. I'm not special. The only thing I did was do more reading to fill my brain, which gave me more and more confidence. That's it. You know, we need an injection of confidence in our profession, and we need to be great examples for our patients out there so that when they look at us, they say, that is a true definition of health right there. That's what I want to be like.
I love it. And if there's people listening to this who do have that doubt, and there is a bit of fear there, where can they find out more about you and learn some of the great stuff that you're teaching?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, my website, minardieducation.com. So just my last name, minardieducation.com. That has a lot of my neurology stuff. And then thompsonchiropractictechnique.com. That has all my technique stuff and my Thompson Minardi stuff. But truthfully, I always say to people, like, remember, there's always three pillars of chiropractic, right? There's the art, philosophy, and science. You need to be good at all three. Like, a lot of people just focus on one or another. You need to have a firm grip on all three to be a true chiropractic warrior and say, you know what, I'm super confident in what I do. Because think about it. If you're an egghead and you know all the science, you know all the research, but you have no philosophy in chiropractic, then that compass can steer to a different direction very quickly. You can only be pain-based and say, oh, I know all the science of pain. That's great. Well, that doesn't help you as a chiropractor. Same thing as if all you know is philosophy. You can quote green books and quote BJ Palmer quotes to me. That's fabulous. But if you can't back it up with science, you're going to get killed if someone starts to debate you on something that they can show. And last but not least, if you're not a great adjuster, you'll never see and witness the power of chiropractic and the power of what influence you have on the brain. So you really have to fill this guy with all three pillars, right? So my Minardi Education site, all my courses, I try to constantly tap into all three of those pillars in each one of my courses so that you're constantly getting that fill. And again, I'm not a neurologist. I'm nothing special. I'm just good at putting stuff together so every practicing chiropractor can understand and say, I can understand what this dude's saying. And you can fill your own confidence jar up a lot more as well.
Amazing. Well, we'll definitely put the links for that in our show notes, and people can definitely find out more about it. And I would really encourage them to do that. You've given so much great content today, from personal development to chiropractic to health in general. Is there anything left inside that brain of yours? Any one last piece of wisdom that you could leave our audience with?
You know what? I could talk to you all day, brother. I love talking about this stuff. The one thing I would like to say is this. I created a course that I called Chasing Greatness. And the reason I created it was because I had so many questions over the years of people saying exactly what you started off with. Why did you do this? Why do you continue to do it? All this kind of stuff. And I always like to say that greatness, whatever you would think of greatness is, has to be chased. You have to go after it. If you want greatness in health, you have to go after it. If you want greatness in academics, you have to go after it. If you want greatness in your relationship, you have to go after it. You can't sit still and think that greatness is coming to you. That's not going to happen ever. Greatness is never just dropped into your lap. And if you think of anybody who is great at anything, whether it be Michael Jordan, whether it be like anybody in academia that you would think, oh my God, Einstein, look, these guys worked tirelessly every single day. Even when they were considered the greatest, they were thinking of other ways to keep upping their game always, always, always. And that's what greatness is in everything, chasing it. You want greatness in health? Go after it, man. You don't have to have a special type of genetics. You don't have to have a special type of anything. Just go after it. For my chiropractors are on here that want this confidence that you may hear from me, go after it, man. Like, start reading information. It's out there. Just go after it. You know, so, and that's what I would say in life. Go after it because it's not coming to you.
Love it. I'm not going to say much because that's perfect to end on. John Minardi, thank you ever so much for being on the show today. I really appreciate it. I have personally learned so much. I said to you before the show, I'm selfishly looking forward to this one, but I know it's going to change a lot of lives. So thank you very much for taking your time to be with us on the show today.
My pleasure, brother. Thanks for inviting me out.